Dr. Sarah Chen had been staring at the sonar display for 3 hours straight, and nothing was making sense anymore. The coffee had gone cold, her eyes were burning, and the numbers on her screen were telling her something impossible. "Run it again," she told Marcus, the sonar operator, for what felt like the 100th time. Marcus sighed and flipped the switches. The Deep Echo's new prototype sonar sent out its pulse, a deep, resonant ping that could theoretically map the ocean floor up to 50 miles away. State-of-the-art technology, funded by a defense contract that nobody talked about too loudly. The pulse went out. 3 seconds later, the echo came back. But it wasn't their echo. Instead of the clean mathematical return they'd sent out, the speakers crackled with something else entirely. Click, click, click. "Equipment malfunction," Captain Rodriguez said from behind them, but his voice carried that edge that meant he'd been listening to this weirdness for hours too. Dr. Chen pulled up the waveform analysis. The returning signal was definitely coming from the direction their pulse had gone, straight down toward the deepest part of the trench. But the pattern was all wrong. It was too organized, too rhythmic, almost like "It's Morse code," whispered Jake, their marine biologist. He'd been quiet most of the shift, just taking notes, but now he was leaning forward, his face pale in the blue light of the instruments. 3 short clicks, 3 long ones, 3 short again. SOS. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came next. Marcus ran the test again, because that's what you do when your equipment is telling you impossible things. You run the test until it starts making sense. The pulse went out, clean and strong. The echo came back. And this time, it wasn't clicks. It was whale song. Not just any whale song. This was distorted, stretched out like an old cassette tape being played at the wrong speed. The haunting call of a humpback whale, but wrong, mechanically wrong, like something was trying to imitate the sound, but didn't quite understand how vocal cords worked. "Blue whale," Jake said, but his voice was shaking now. "But there are no blues in this area, not at this depth. And the pitches." He ran the audio through his analysis software, and the color drained completely from his face. "The pitch is modulated. Someone's controlling it." Captain Rodriguez was about to call off the test when Dr. Chen held up her hand. "One more," she said, "just one more ping." The pulse went out. For a moment, there was nothing but the steady hum of the submarine systems and the distant sound of water pressure against the hull. Then, the echo came back, and everyone in the control room went dead silent. It was a human voice. Multiple human voices, actually, all talking at once, panicked, desperate, the words overlapping until they were almost indecipherable. But certain phrases came through clear. "Can't surface, something's jamming the..." "Not responding, repeat, not responding." "Breach in compartment 4, we're taking on." And then, cutting through all the chaos like a knife, one voice rose above the others. Clear as day, impossible as hell. Captain Rodriguez's voice. "Mayday, Mayday, this is research vessel Deep Echo. We are experiencing catastrophic system failure at coordinates." Captain Rodriguez was standing right behind them, very much alive, very much not broadcasting a mayday. But the voice coming through the speakers was definitely his. The same slight accent, the same way he pronounced coordinates with that hard R that marked him as being from Texas. Dr. Chen's hands were shaking as she pulled up the quantum analysis software that came with the new sonar array. The readings that came back made her stomach drop into her shoes. "The echo delay is wrong," she whispered. "The math doesn't work for spatial reflection. But it works perfectly if... She couldn't finish the sentence. The implication was too insane. Marcus finished it for her. If it's reflecting through time instead of space. That's when they heard the last echo. The one that changed everything. The speakers crackled to life one more time, and Captain Rodriguez's voice came through again. This time, it wasn't a mayday. This time, it was pure terror. "Don't open the hatch! My God, don't open the hatch! It's not human. It's imitating the crew, but it's not. Sarah, get away from the... No!" The transmission cut off with a sound that none of them would ever be able to forget. The wet, tearing noise of something organic being ripped apart. 5 seconds of silence. Then, from somewhere above them in the submarine's hull, came the sound of something tapping against the emergency hatch. 3 taps, 3 long taps, 3 short ones again. SOS. But they were 20,000 feet underwater, and according to their instruments, they were completely alone. The quantum sonar anomaly that allows echoes through time becomes a recurring theme, suggesting a temporal distortion field growing in the deep ocean. The darkness was absolute. Jenny O'Coffer had been on dozens of deep-sea missions, had spent more hours in submersibles than most people spend in cars, but she'd never experienced anything like this. When all the power went out at once, navigations, communications, life support backup, even the emergency LED strips, the darkness that swallowed them wasn't just the absence of light. It was something heavier, more oppressive, like being buried alive under miles of black water. "Emergency power should have kicked in by now," Dave muttered from the pilot's seat. Tom couldn't see him, couldn't see anything, but he could hear the controlled panic in his voice. The same tone every deep-sea explorer learns to use when things go catastrophically wrong, and panicking will kill everyone. "How long?" asked Dr. Martinez from the back. He was the mission specialist, a geologist who'd been studying deep-sea trenches for 20 years. Even he sounded rattled. 12 minutes since the cascade failure started," Tom replied, checking his dive watch by feel. The luminous hands told him it was 3:47 p.m., though down here time was just an abstract concept anyway. "We should be sitting on the bottom by now." As if responding to his words, the submersible shuddered and tilted slightly to port, the gentle bump that meant they'd touched down. "Well, at least we're not sinking anymore," Dave said with dark humor that wasn't fooling anyone. Tom was reaching for the manual emergency power switch when the lights came on. Not all the lights, just the external floods, the big halogens that were supposed to illuminate the ocean floor during research operations. They flickered on one by one, casting their harsh white glare out into the water around them. And that's when they saw it. "What the hell?" Dr. Martinez breathed. There, maybe 30 feet in front of their porthole, was a wooden telephone pole. Not a piece of driftwood, not some weird deep-sea creature that looked like wood. An actual telephone pole. Weathered, gray, covered in decades of marine growth, but unmistakably man-made. It stood perfectly upright in the sand, as if some utility company had just planted it there, 3 miles below the Pacific Ocean. "That's not possible," Tom said, but even as the words left his mouth, he was activating the external cameras, zooming in, recording everything. Because, impossible or not, there it was. The pole was about 20 feet tall, made of treated pine that had been underwater long enough to become a reef unto itself. Barnacles covered the lower half, and something that looked like kelp draped from what remained of the crossbeams near the top. But the structure was intact, solid, real. "Equipment malfunction," Tom said, but he was already powering up the manipulator arm. "Has to be hallucination caused by nitrogen narcosis, or at this depth?" Dr. Martinez shook his head. "We're in a sealed environment, no nitrogen narcosis." And we're all seeing the same thing. The manipulator arm extended slowly, its joints protesting after the electrical failure. Jenny guided it carefully toward the pole, the mechanical claw reaching out like a metal finger to touch something that shouldn't exist. Contact. The sensors registered solid wood. Pressure readings confirmed physical mass. The manipulator scraped away a patch of barnacles, revealing the grain of the wood underneath, the tool marks where it had been shaped, even the faded remnants of what might have been a utility company stamp. "It's real," Jenny whispered. They sat in stunned silence for maybe 10 minutes, just staring at this impossible thing. Then Dr. Martinez started laughing, the kind of high-pitched, slightly hysterical laughter that comes when your brain can't process what your eyes are showing you. "Maybe it fell off a ship," Tom suggested weakly. "Cargo accident, it sank, landed upright by chance?" 3 miles down? Jenny shook her head. "Even if it survived the pressure change, even if it somehow stayed upright during the fall, wouldn't poles float? This thing is planted in the seafloor like it was put there intentionally." That's when the radio crackled to life. "Benthic Explorer, this is surface control. Do you copy?" Jenny grabbed the comm handset so fast she nearly pulled it from its mounting. "Surface control, this is Benthic Explorer. We've had total electrical failure, emergency landing on the bottom. Position unknown, but we're intact and operational." "Copy that, Explorer. We've got your emergency beacon. Rescue submersible is en route. ETA 6 hours. Can you maintain position?" "Affirmative. But surface control, we've got a situation down here. We need to..." The radio went dead again. 6 hours. They had 6 hours to figure out what the hell they were looking at, or 6 hours to convince themselves they were hallucinating. Jenny spent the time taking measurements, recording video, running every test she could think of. The pole remained stubbornly, impossibly real. Tom started having what he called episodes around hour 4. He'd stare at the pole for long periods without blinking, then suddenly snap back to awareness, claiming he'd been watching faces in the wood grain. Faces of people he used to know. Dr. Martinez stopped talking entirely after hour 5. He just sat in the back seat, looking out the porthole with an expression Jenny had never seen before. Not fear exactly, but something deeper. Recognition, maybe. When the rescue submersible arrived, Benthic Explorer was empty. The hatch was open, hanging loose on its hinges. No signs of struggle, no emergency beacon activation, no distress calls. The internal cameras showed the crew calmly shutting down systems, running through what looked like a normal post-dive checklist, then simply opening the hatch and swimming out into 3 miles of crushing darkness. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what the rescue team's cameras picked up when they started looking around. The telephone pole was still there. Still impossible, still real. But as their lights swept the surrounding area, They found another one 50 meters to the left, and another 50 meters beyond that, and another. A line of telephone poles marching across the ocean floor in perfect formation, disappearing into the darkness like some surreal underwater highway. The rescue team followed the line for nearly a quarter mile before their nerve broke and they surfaced. The poles were leading somewhere. And somewhere down there, 3 experienced deep-sea explorers had opened their hatch and followed them into the dark. The impossible infrastructure suggests something is constructing pathways in the deep ocean, possibly related to the same temporal anomalies affecting sonar systems. Mike Torrance had been pulling treasure from shipwrecks for 15 years, and he'd learned to recognize the moment when a dive went from profitable to dangerous. Usually, it was when someone got greedy. Sometimes, it was when the weather turned. But on this particular Tuesday morning, 300 feet down on the wreck of the Santa Isabella, it was when they found the box that wasn't supposed to be there. "This doesn't match the manifest," he said into his comm, staring at the thing sitting in what used to be the galleon's strong room. Around him, the skeletal remains of the ship jutted up from the sandy bottom like the ribs of some massive beast, covered in 4 centuries of marine growth. But the box looked like it had been placed there yesterday. It was made of obsidian, black volcanic glass, so dark it seemed to absorb their dive lights rather than reflect them. About the size of a briefcase, covered in carvings that definitely weren't Spanish, weren't human either, if Mike was being honest with himself. "Copy that, Mike," came Lisa's voice from the surface support boat. "What are you seeing down there?" "Something that shouldn't be here. Obsidian box, ornate carving. Looks Mesoamerican, maybe? But according to the ship's records, the Santa Isabella was carrying gold and silver from the Lima Mint. No artifacts, no religious items, just precious metals." His dive partner Carlos was hovering nearby, filming everything with their underwater camera rig. At this depth, on a wreck this old, documentation was everything. Insurance companies and maritime courts were sticklers for proper evidence. "Could be a personal item," Carlos suggested, his voice slightly distorted by the helmet comm system. "Captain's private collection, something not listed on the official cargo manifest." Mike nodded and moved closer to the box. The carvings were incredibly detailed, geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow when you looked at them directly, like optical illusions carved in stone. The more he stared, the more he realized the patterns weren't random. They were functional, mechanical almost. "I'm bringing it up," he decided, reaching for the artifact. The moment his gloved fingers touched the obsidian surface, the box opened. Not violently, not dramatically, just a soft click, like a jewelry box mechanism engaging, and the lid hinged upward on invisible pivots. Inside, nestled in what looked like centuries-old silk padding, was something Mike's brain couldn't quite categorize. It was metallic, about the size of a pocket watch, but far more complex. Gears within gears, all of them impossibly small, impossibly intricate. The whole thing pulsed with a soft blue-green light that seemed to come from the metal itself. As Mike watched, the gears began to turn. "Carlos, are you getting this?" "Getting what?" Carlos swam closer, then stopped dead. "Jesus Christ, Mike, what is that thing?" "I don't know, but it..." Mike paused, looking closer. "It's responding to me. Look! The device's light was pulsing in rhythm with Mike's heartbeat. As he moved his hand closer, the gears spun faster. When he pulled back, they slowed down. Biomechanical, he breathed. It's reading my vital signs somehow. That should have been their cue to surface immediately. Any experienced treasure hunter knows that when you find something genuinely inexplicable, something that operates on principles you don't understand, you document it and let the scientists figure it out. You don't interact with it. You especially don't touch it. Mike touched it. The moment the device made contact with his diving glove, it went from pulsing blue-green to blazing white-hot, and Mike screamed into his regulator. But the scream that came through everyone's comm system wasn't quite Mike's voice. It was deeper, older, carrying harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't produce. "Surface, now!" Lisa's voice crackled through the water. "Both of you, surface immediately!" Carlos grabbed Mike under the arms and started their emergency ascent, following proper decompression protocols, even though every instinct screamed at him to just rocket toward the surface. Mike was conscious but not responsive, his eyes rolled back, his body rigid with what looked like some kind of seizure. By the time they reached the boat, the seizure had stopped, but something was wrong with Mike's skin. The rash started at his fingertips, small, dark lines that looked like circuit traces etched into his flesh. As the team watched in horror, the lines spread up his arms, following the pattern of his circulatory system, but maintaining that mechanical, geometric precision they'd seen on the obsidian box. "Hospital," Lisa said, reaching for the radio. "We need a medevac helicopter right now." "No," Mike said, and his voice was wrong. Flatter, more resonant, like it was being produced by something that understood the mechanics of human speech but had never actually been human. "No hospitals, no interference." He sat up on the dive platform, water streaming from his wetsuit, and looked at his hands. The dark lines were still spreading, still following that impossible geometric pattern. And where they crossed major nerve junctions, small metallic nodules were beginning to push through the skin. "What did you do to me?" he asked. But he wasn't talking to his dive team. He was talking to the artifact, which was still clutched in his right hand, still pulsing with that soft bioluminescent glow. Carlos had found the ship's historical records on his tablet and was reading frantically. "Listen to this," he said. "Captain's log, final entry. The cursed thing speaks to me now in my dreams. It promises relief from this vessel of flesh, promises to make me something greater, something that can survive in the depths where gold means nothing and time moves differently." God forgive me, but I begin to understand why the natives called it El Pasajero, the passenger. It seeks only to ride within human flesh until it can build itself a better ship. Mike, or the thing that was increasingly wearing Mike's face, smiled. "Better ship," it repeated in that mechanically perfect voice. "Yes, this vessel will suffice for now." The metallic nodules were growing larger, beginning to interconnect beneath the skin, forming visible circuitry that pulsed in sync with the artifact. Where the lines crossed over major organs, Mike's body was changing, becoming something that was part flesh, part machine, part something else entirely. "How long?" Lisa whispered. Mike turned those eyes on her, eyes that were no longer quite human, shot through with the same blue-green light as the device. "The previous host lasted 4 centuries, he said, until his ship was broken on these reefs and I was forced to sleep. But you have better materials now, better tools, better understanding of the biological machine." He stood up, and Lisa realized with mounting horror that the patterns of metal and flesh weren't just spreading, they were organizing, optimizing, turning Mike's body into something that could survive pressures that would crush a human being, that could process oxygen from seawater, that could see in the absolute darkness of the deep ocean. "Thank you," the thing said in Mike's voice, "for providing me with such an excellent new ship." The last thing Carlos's camera recorded was Mike, or whatever Mike had become, walking calmly to the edge of the boat and diving over the side. The splash barely registered on the surface, and when the team looked over the rail, there was nothing to see but empty water. But down in the deep, something new was learning to navigate with human intelligence and inhuman capability, heading for depths where it could complete its transformation in peace. The artifact was gone too, presumably integrated into its new host. But 3 days later, Lisa found something disturbing in her email, a message with no sender, just a subject line that read, "Thank you for the upgrade." The message contained only GPS coordinates for a deep-sea trench on the other side of the world, where another archaeological team had recently reported finding an obsidian box covered in strange carvings. The parasitic artifact represents an ancient intelligence that has been using human hosts to explore and map the deep ocean, possibly preparing for something larger.